Okay.
All right.
Started.
Are we rolling?
Let me screen share.
Yeah. Share your screen.
Let me screen share this.
Yeah, I think I'm for podcast names. I think we should go with the Joe Rogan show.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever done that.
I don't. Yeah, honestly, we should just all be named Joe Rogan because that's like such a unique name that nobody's ever had before.
Yeah, like what if we were called the Joe Rogan podcast and we all like spouted pro-Zionist shit.
Yeah, and smoked weed.
Yeah. Essentially, that's just already what I do.
All right, so Orion, you know the story, right?
Yes, I do. But it's a great story.
It is a great story. Chance, I think you'll really like the story because you don't know it.
It's up there with my conception at an ICP concert in Ohio.
Exactly.
What? All right. Anyways, all right, we're killing Chance after this episode, but that's
yeah, he's dying.
Yep.
Right.
I'm armed at the Glenmont Metro, and
all right, the story. If you are armed at the Glenmont Metro, please shoot me. All right, we're getting into it. Make it a headshot.
Chance, shut the fuck up.
Make it a headshot. Shoot me in the temple, aiming slightly downwards. I need the bullet to travel the shortest possible distance through my brain before it hits my hippocampus. If I'm lucky, the sensation of the gunshot ripping through my skull will only last a few decades. As awful as this sounds, you'll be doing me an enormous favor. Death by a headshot as soon as possible is vastly better than the alternative. My ordeal started... Go ahead.
No, he's a siege player. He's a siege player, and he wants him to aim head level.
Exactly.
Pistol one-taps, dude.
My ordeal started over 10,000 years ago, at 10:15 this morning. I earn extra money by participating in drug trials. I'm a so-called healthy subject who takes experimental drugs to help assess side effects. Once, it was a kidney drug. A few times, it's been something for blood pressure or cholesterol. This morning, they told me the drug I took was a psychoactive substance intended to accelerate brain function. None of the drugs I had tested so far have ever done anything for me, in the recreational sense. In other words, none of the drugs I've tested have given me a killer buzz or mellowed me out or anything. Maybe I've always ended up the placebo group, but nothing I've tested has affected me at all. Today's drug was different. This shit worked. They gave me a pill at 10:15 and told me to hang out in the waiting room until they called me back for some tests. Only about 30 minutes, the researcher assistant told me. I flopped onto the waiting room couch and read a few articles from the copy of Psychology Today that was sitting on the coffee table. They hadn't called me back when I finished the Psychology Today, so I picked up a US News and read it cover to cover. Then I read an old Scientific American. What was taking them so damn long? So I want to stop here and I want to appreciate the writing here, right? Because I think this story excels at like really good like individual lines, right? Like my ordeal started over 10,000 years ago at 10:15 this morning. I love that line, right?
Yeah, it's a good line. Really shows. I think it's good foreshadowing, low-key.
It's good foreshadowing, and it's good at setting up the premise, and it's a good hook too, right?
Yeah, how it's describing his sluggish movements.
Yeah, I think this story is part of a sort of...
Thank you, Chance.
It's sort of a part of universe of stories that this author has made.
Like my penis.
So who knows? Maybe we'll read more of these. Good one, Orion.
Yeah. Oh, hold on though. Before we continue, I'm looking at your screen here. Why are you in 2 r/Cowboy Bebop servers? And what the fuck is Doug?
What do you mean? What the fuck is Doug?
What the fuck is Doug?
It's Doug.
How would I fucking dug my dick in your fucking butt? That's what I'm saying.
You don't know Doug?
No, we don't know Doug.
You guys are crazy. He has like over 3 million subscribers.
Don't gaslamp me, all right?
Look him up on YouTube.
I'm not looking up. I'm not putting that on my search history, dude.
Okay.
Anyways, continue the story. Fucking.
So he's read 3 magazines in the time they've told him to wait
Is
for
he
taking
subscribed
this
to Doug
drug.
Doug?
Probably.
Oh yeah, probably. Because apparently everybody fucking knows Doug Doug.
Everybody knows Doug Doug, dude.
No, the fuck they do not.
He's like one of the biggest
I know
creators
Dig Dug.
on the internet. You know the Stanley Parable?
No. What the fuck is that?
You're lying.
Don't gaslight me, Charlie.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're
it's
moving on.
Chance.
So he's read 3 magazines
Yep.
in the time that he's been in the waiting room.
Doug.
I sluggishly turned my head to look at the clock up on the wall. It was only 10:23 a.m. I had read all 3 magazines in 8 minutes. I remember thinking this was going to be a long day. I was right. The waiting room had a little bookshelf with some used hardcovers on it. When I stood up to walk to the bookshelf, it felt like my legs barely worked. It's not that they were weak. They were just slow. It took a full minute just to stand up off the couch, and another minute to take 2 steps to the bookcase. I scanned the old books on the shelf and picked out a copy of Moby Dick. My arms had the same problems as my legs. Just reaching 1 foot in front of me to grab the book took a long time. I actually got bored just waiting for my hand to reach the spine of the book. I slogged back to the couch and collapsed onto it in a slow motion fall that reminded me of the low-gravity hops of astronauts on the moon. I opened Moby Dick, slowly, and began reading. I started with Call Me Ishmael, and got as far as Ahab throwing his pipe into the sea, which is all the way to the 3rd friggin' chapter. Restart. Which was all the way to chapter friggin' 30. Before they called me back. "How are you feeling?" the research assistant told me. "I feel slow."
That's what I told my
said.
counselor.
"Actually, it's the other way around. Everything seems slow because you're so fast. But my legs, my arms, they're moving in slow motion." "Your body seems like it's moving in slow motion because your brain is fast. Your brain is running 10 or 20 times faster than normal. You're thinking and perceiving reality at an accelerated pace. But your body is still constrained by the laws of biomechanics. Frankly, you're moving much faster than a normal person." She pantomimed a jogging motion. "But your brain is running so much faster right now that even your fast walk seems very slow to you."
Can we pause here real quick?
Yeah.
Chance, if you don't stop clicking on that fucking keyboard, I'm gonna kill you.
Have a fun time editing this one, Orion.
Fucking Jack Black, I am placing blocks and shit. Cause
Shaking Jackie.
I'm gonna kill both of you. Anyways, continue.
Where was I?
It was right there. I thought about my slow motion flop.
Okay. I thought about my slow motion flop onto the waiting room couch. Even if my muscles had slowed down, my body would still react to gravity the same way. But in the waiting room, I even fell in slow motion. Slow muscles couldn't explain why gravity seemed weaker. My brain was going at warp 10. That's how I managed to read 3 magazines and the first 30 chapters of Moby Dick in 15 minutes. They ran a series of tests on me. The physical tests were fun. They made me juggle 3 balls, then 4, then 6.
My average
I call that
Tuesday.
Tuesday. The fact we both said Tuesday out of every day in the week.
My fucking stepmom said that to me too. No, because I was texting her earlier because she was like fucking, I don't know, she was like sipping NyQuil or something. Fucking Dave Blunt's over here.
She was placing blocks and shit because she's in fucking Minecraft.
I said, she told me she was sick. I said, that's fucking rough, dude. Being sick of Below's penis. And she said, so regular Tuesday night.
I had no problem keeping 6 balls in the air because they...
Yeah. You want a fucking medal? Yeah, you want a fucking medal? I have no problem keeping 8 balls in my mouth. Who's this guy think he is? No, you guys were flirting by showing off your Minecraft hardcore worlds. Oh yeah, well, Potato, you're black.
You'll have to cut that out. I had no problem keeping 6 balls in the air because they seemed to be moving so slowly. It was boring, frankly, waiting for each ball to move through its arc so I could catch it with my slow-motion hands and toss it back into the air. They threw Cheerios in the air and I caught them with chopsticks. They dropped a handful of coins and I counted the total value before they hit the ground.
Jewish.
The cognitive tests were less fun, but very illuminating. Finish a 50-word search, 3 seconds. Solve an intricate maze drawn onto a poster paper-sized paper, 2 seconds.
My ex time
View a
time in bed.
View a slideshow projected at 10 images per second and answer detailed questions about what I say. 95 correct.
Saw.
Exactly. This is sort of like a saw trap if you think about it.
No.
If you think about it,
what I say, I'm correcting your speaking. This is sort of like a saw trap. No, you dumb asshole. What I say, it's saw, you asswipe. Continue.
Oops. They told me I measured over 250 on the Knopf scale.
What the fuck
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, what the fuck is that? Look that up.
Hold on, we'll look it up. I think it has something to do with like how fast your brain processes stuff. A system used to grade the extent of cavernous sinus invasion by pituitary micro...
SpongeBob yapping gif.
Yeah, so that didn't help. I don't know what it is. They told me I measured over 250 on the Knopf scale. Apparently, that's deep into the subhuman range of thinking speeds.
Superhuman. Subhuman, subhuman implies a completely different thing.
They told me I measured... They told me I measured over 250 on the Knopf scale. Apparently, that's deep into the superhuman range of thinking speeds.
Thank you.
Then they sent me home. It'll wear off in a few hours, they said, which will seem like days to you. Try to use the residual effects to get some work done. Catch up on some work emails while you're still in high-speed mode. The ride home was horrible. It was only 3 metro stops, and in real-world time, it only took about 35 minutes. But in my drug-accelerated hyper-time, it felt like days. Days. Just walking out of the medical research suite into the elevator seemed like it took an hour. I sprinted out of the office, willing my legs to push me faster. But the laws of biomechanics held me prisoner. As accelerated as my brain was, I couldn't do anything to make my legs work faster. The huge disconnect between my body and mind made it extremely difficult to judge how and when to slow down, turn, or rotate my body. Don't laugh at that. I had basically turned into giant, slow-motion spaz. I misjudged my speed and rammed into the wall by the elevator button at a pretty good speed. Even though I could see the wall coming at me, I couldn't make my finger, outstretched at the elevator button, move away fast enough, and I jammed it against the wall. Hard. The pain was intense. If my brain had been running at regular speed, it probably would have only hurt for 30 seconds or so. But in my accelerated state, the intense pain seemed to last for half an hour. 45 minutes maybe. So already, I want to talk about how this is an amazing premise, right?
Yeah,
like, I love this premise. Like, he is living in a world where he has such an accelerated pace that everything seems so slow to him. And I just love it, right?
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, like, illegal recreational substances, the way he says minutes felt like hours. Because when I do trip, I lose all concept of time, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
Because when I did take shrooms earlier, when I was halfway through the trip and tweaking, apparently I stared into a blank TV for 30 minutes, and to me it felt like 15. Like
Dude,
15
I have
5.
been high and done some dumb ass shit, right? Like it's crazy, and like that this feels possible, right? Which is also what I love about it. It doesn't feel too
It's not
outside of the realm of
it's not super
possibility.
sci-fi,
Yeah.
It's a very plausible thing, you know, especially with like advances in modern science.
Yeah.
Um,
I just
speaking of
I love it.
speaking of substances, speaking of
You were gonna say,
substances,
Ryan?
my buddy Kieran told me about this guy who took like psychedelics, and 30 minutes in, they found him lying on his mattress, his fingers in his asshole, jerking his dick, and he was pissing and shitting himself on his bed.
I
I don't know. Well, no, he pissed himself and shit himself, but then started to stroke his shit, I guess.
Did they say he died? Nowhere in there did he say he died. Okay.
Well, yeah, no, he ego deathed in a whole different way. Because, like, once you're in that state, once you get caught like that,
You don't live that down.
If you're at my buddy Keyring's house and armed, please shoot me in the head.
The elevator ride was horrible. It felt like I spent 4 or 5 hours just descending 7 floors, with nothing to look at but the interior of the elevator car. I sprinted to the metro station. I have to admit, this part was almost fun. Even though my body moved at what seemed to me super slow speed, I could still carefully choose how and where to place my feet, swing my arms, and turn my torso. It only took a block or two getting used to having a brain that ran 24 times faster than my body. Then, I basically sprint danced the rest of the way, twisting and jerking between people on the sidewalk and dodging moving cars with inches, aka minutes, of clearance. I spent an hour, in my time frame, descending into the subway and running to the platform. Endless tedium waiting the 6 minutes for the Red Line train to arrive. Although there was more to look at on the metro platform than inside the elevator, it was still intensely boring. I should have stolen that copy of Moby Dick. The Red Line train roared into the station in slow motion. The normally high-pitched squeal of its brakes was frequency shifted by my high-speed mind to a long, low tone, like a monotone tuba solo. Pause real quick, I have to let my cat out.
He's airing out his puss. I jerk soft. No, we're gonna leave it in.
Alright, jerk off, let's get back to it.
I think he heard us.
I didn't.
Oh, that's even funnier then. Because Chance said, "Are you jerking hard or hardly jerking?" You know.
Are you stroganoff or beefing?
What did the beef get fired from its day job?
It was stroganoff.
He wouldn't stop stroganoff.
It wasn't just...
Continue.
It wasn't just the squealing... It wasn't just the squealing subway train. That was...
I was at pizzazz.
Sound effects?
Yeah.
It wasn't just the squealing subway train. You know you're editing this, right? You don't have to do it.
I already did. That's why I did it.
Okay, you're saving yourself time in the future.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the squealing subway train that was 3 octaves lower than normal. All sound was slowed to the point of near inaudibility. Voices were gone, shifted beyond the threshold frequency of my hearing. I did manage to... Can we execute this guy?
Well, no, you'll see. I don't want to spoil it, but I'm pretty sure there's something.
The effects are worsening, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm.
So as he's going throughout his day, it's only been like an hour and a half since he left, but it's progressively getting slower.
Hold on, okay, this is gonna sound like a stupid ass question, but like I'm being so genuine. How would it feel to get a boner like that? Not like it.
No, I feel like it'd be terrible.
Yeah, no, because like it would be like the slow buildup of blood rushing there. Like it's.
You could feel every
Like every
cell,
inch.
every blood cell, I feel like.
Yeah, every inch. Like what if you get a boner that hurts? You ever had one of those?
Yeah.
No,
Nope.
because like,
It's normal.
no, yeah, it's normal. You've never had a boner?
You've never had a boner? I can change that.
Yeah. It's fucking yeah. Well, like, well, yeah, because you've never seen me shake ass.
You never spent a day with Orion.
Clearly, you've never met me before.
Exactly. It's normal.
Yeah. So why are
Anyways,
we talking about?
back to the story.
I don't know. I kind of want to keep talking about boners.
It wasn't just the squealing subway train that was 3 octaves lower than normal. All sound was slowed to the point of near inaudibility. Voices were gone, shifted below the threshold.
Beol.
Shifted below the threshold frequency of my hearing. I'm sure I got this, chat. I did manage to hear a screaming baby on my subway car. Her shrieks. Thank you, Orion. Her shrieks slowed to the sound like whale songs. Sharp sounds like a car horn, and trucks bouncing over potholes were low. Muddied roars like distant thunder. I swear to God, Orion, I need you to shut up. For the love of all that is holy. Back at the research offices, I could still hear and communicate with the research staff. But now, verbal communication with anyone would be impossible. The effects of the drug were still intensifying. See, chance if you just waited like 2 paragraphs. My bad!
Reasonable crash out?
I spent what seemed like days on that fucking red line train. Days. Listening to the whale song of the screaming baby and the tuba solo of the brakes. Where ordinary voices were frequency shifted out of my audio ranges, smells didn't seem to be affected. I never became noseblind to the body odor, the stench of the train's brakes, and I don't know that word, and melange of farts and other smells wafting through the metro car.
Sounds like heaven.
It just sounds like going to a Weezer concert.
It sounds like my fantasy.
I finally got back to my apartment. Sprinting through my open door and into the front hall at full speed was like a slow, relaxing drift down a lazy river. I was relieved to be home. At least I had stuff I could do there. I picked up a book I was reading, 100 Years of Solitude, and finished it. Despite turning the pages so quickly that I tore many of them. It seemed like most of the time I spent finishing the book was spent on page turning and not actually reading. 30 minutes had passed since I got home. I tried surfing the internet. My God, it takes a long time for computers to boot up these days. What? Oh, that's fine. You didn't say anything important.
Mine stopped too.
What?
No, I'm kidding. I lied.
Okay.
Yeah, we got enough space in your bum for my dick.
What are we gonna do about this?
Fuck him. Alright, guys, we're gonna have to take Chance to the woods, beat him to death with hammers, and then do things to his nude body. You know, he just accepts his fate.
25 minutes.
Yeah, just
about
25.
That's
Well,
crazy.
you know, yeah, it's not like he said anything of value.
We're just gonna look like fucking crazy people, I guess.
Oh, yeah,
Orion, you'll have to do a lot of editing.
That's just me clipping anything.
Okay.
Let's see the Marines try to take me like this.
Bye, Chance.
Bye.
Are you just gonna stay here? Okay.
You'll stay here. You're gonna make us look even more schizo.
Yeah, Ryan, you'll just
Alright.
have to. We'll figure it out.
We'll
We'll figure it
figure
out.
it out. We'll just have. We'll see
Orion,
much
that's your job.
chance as a secondary character.
Yeah. He's the narrator that we can't hear, right?
Yeah, he's the narrator in my head who tells me to burn things. That would be hilarious, actually. That's like
Alright.
40 comedy.
I tried surfing the internet. My God, it takes a long time for computers to boot up these days. But it was too frustratingly slow. Hours, seemingly, to load
Chance,
each new
get
page.
the fuck off of Instagram Reels. I can hear that shit.
We could hear it.
Trust me, but I was playing Siege with Big Logan. All he does is sit on Instagram Reels.
Alright, can I finish this fucking paragraph?
I don't know, can you?
I tried surfing the internet. My God, it takes a long time for computer to... Restart. I tried surfing the internet. My God, it takes a long time for computers to boot up these days. But it was too frustratingly slow. Hours, seemingly, to load each new page, and a fraction of a second to read it. 100 articles in my newsfeed read and just 3 more minutes done. I dipped into my pile of yet-to-be-read books and finished 2 more. 4 more minutes had passed. I decided to try to sleep off the remaining effects of the drug. Unfortunately, whatever part of my mind is responsible for perception, that part's been accelerated to hyperspeeds by the drug. Isn't the same as the part that governs sleep. Despite being awake for what I perceived as days, my physical brain still thought it was 1:25 p.m. It was not ready for sleep. Nevertheless, I tried to sleep. I walked to my bedroom, a slow 45-minute drift through my apartment, and flung myself into bed, lazily falling like a feather onto the mattress. I closed my eyes and lay there for hours and hours. 10 minutes of reality time. Before giving up. Sleep would not come. I was facing what was going to feel like days, or maybe even weeks, of being trapped in a slow-motion prison. So I took an Ambien. The sensation of the pill and the splash of the water I used to swallow it sliding my throat was sickening. A lump that blocked my breathing, moving like a slug down my esophagus. I read a book. 10 minutes had passed. I read another. 8 minutes since I took the Ambien. I threw the book across the room in disgust at my situation. The book slowly pirouetted and spun through the air, like a leaf blowing in a breeze. It hit the wall with a long, faint rumble, the only sound I had heard for what seemed like hours, then drifted to the floor like a flip-flop sinking in a swimming pool. Great imagery. Just immaculate imagery. The writing in this story is just top-notch. I love it so much.
Yes, I do. It's very descriptive.
Yes, it is.
It goes into great detail about how slow and like hellish this would be.
Yes,
in my opinion.
and what I love and what I've noticed is that as his perception of time is getting slower, each paragraph is covering like a slower or like a smaller segment of time, right?
Yeah.
So we started with him like an entire paragraph of him reading magazines in the waiting room, and now we're at an entire paragraph describing a book falling on the floor, right?
Yeah. So like it's kind of pacing itself with the story, you know.
Yeah, which is genius. I love it.
It's genius, man, like Kanye.
He made Graduation, bro.
He made Graduation.
Did you see he released a song today?
Oh god. Oh god.
The force of gravity hadn't changed since I took the pill. The laws of physics were the same. It was just my perception of time that had gone wackadoo. This meant I could use the speed things seemed to fall as a way of judging the effects of the drug. Based on how long it took the book to drift to the floor, I estimated the effects of the drug were still intensifying. I read a magazine. I turned on the television. I clearly saw each frame of video like I was watching a slideshow. Frustrated, I turned the television off. I read some more. The first 2 books of Churchill's A History of the English-Speaking Peoples. Not exactly a light read. Frankly, I hated it. But given the hours of tedium it would take to get another book off my bookshelf, just sitting on the couch and reading Churchill was better. Or at least less worse. It had now been 35 minutes since I took the Ambien. I lay down on the couch and closed my eyes. Time passed. I inhaled. An hours-long process. Time passed. I exhaled for more hours. Sleep would not come. I needed a new plan. I decided to go back to the offices where they gave me the drug. Maybe they would have something that could counteract its effects, or at least something to knock me out until it wore off. I exited my apartment as fast as possible, taking hours in my time frame to do so. I didn't even bother locking the door. It would have taken too long. Down the stairs. It's faster than the elevator if you run. Through the lobby, out the front door, and onto the street. These few things felt like a long day at the office. Sprinting down the street, dancing and weaving between pedestrians with what must have looked like to them superhuman dexterity. Down the first flight of stairs at the metro, across the landing, another hour. Then onto the second flight of stairs. That's when the Ambien hit me. The Ambien didn't make me sleepy. Not at all. Instead, it must have had a severe cross-reaction with the experimental drug I took this morning. I was bouncing down the second flight of stairs, moving in slow motion, but still making perceptible progress. Then wham! Everything stopped. The dull roar of the street and metro noise ceased, replaced by the most perfect silence I've ever experienced. My downwards motion seemed to completely freeze. Before the Ambien kicked in, my perception of time was maybe a few hundred times slower than real time. After the Ambien took effect, time moved thousands of times slower. Every second seemed like days to me. Even just moving my eyes to focus on a new point was like an impossibly slow scroll across my visual field. Over the course of the afternoon, I learned how to walk, run, and jump when my mind ran hundreds of times faster than my body. But with another 4 or 5 orders of magnitude of slowdown caused by the Ambien, body control was almost impossible. I fell onto the stairs. Even though I was all but frozen in mid-step, controlling my muscles was impossible. I commanded my foot forwards for hours, then backwards for hours more, when it seemed like I would miss the next step. Hours attempting to adjust to the angle of my ankle, the readjusting when it felt wrong. Despite these efforts, I rolled my ankle on the next step. The pain wasn't at all mitigated by the slowness. Hours of increasing strain on my bent ankle. The nerve signals that send pain into the brain must work differently than the nerves in my ear. Sonic energy was spread out over time, diluted until it was imperceptible. Pain flowed into my brain, undiluted by the change in my perception of time. Hours and hours of increasing weight on my turned ankle turned into hours of increasing pain upon increasing pain. I pitched forwards, my high-speed mind completely unable to control my low-speed body. I drifted downwards for days, managing to rotate my torso enough to keep my head from impacting the ground first. I eventually landed on my right shoulder. At first, the impact wasn't even noticeable. Then I felt a slight pressure in my shoulder as it came in contact with the ground. The pressure grew, bringing increasing pain for hour upon hour. My shoulder finally gave out, popping out of its socket with an endless, sickening tug. I came to a stop days later, crumbled onto the ground, staring at the ceiling. The pain in my shoulder still screaming with the intensity of a fresh, violent injury. I had plenty of time to think during that fall. If every second seemed like days to me, then each minute of the real-world time would be like years. Even if the drug cleared out of my system in the next 2 or 3 hours, the nightmare would seem to last centuries. By the time I hit the ground, I had a plan. I would somehow get to the platform, then throw myself in front of a train. I twisted onto my hands and knees, days of dislocated shoulder crying for relief. I misjudged my rotation and rolled onto my back. I tried again. Collapsing onto my face, I tried to figure out how to control my body that moved slower than grass grew. Weeks of effort were finally rewarded with success. I stabilized onto my hands and knees. If just getting on all fours was this difficult, I figured that walking or running was completely out of the question. So I crawled. I crawled through the metro tunnel. The dumb look on the faces in the crowd lingered on me for weeks. I crawled under the turnstile and onto the escalator. The escalator spilled the rush hour crowd onto the platform at the same speed a glacier spills ice into the sea. I looked out over the crowded platform during my interminable downward ride. The train status sign said the next train wouldn't arrive for 20 minutes. 20 minutes was like a year to me. I'd have to spend a year on the metro platform, waiting to die. I crawled off the escalator, enduring days of stupid expressions on the commuters' faces. I crawled a few feet to a concrete bench and curled up next to it, trying to find a position to lessen the pain in my shoulder. Then my problem with time got worse. Impossibly worse. The massive slowdown on the stairs was just the beginning of the interaction between the experimental drug and the Ambien. It fully hit me while I was curled up by the bench. I blinked. Years of darkness followed. Sound was already gone, and with my blink, sight was gone as well. All that existed was the pain from my fall. My hyper-accelerated mind wasted no time compensating for the lack of sensory input. Voices spoke to me. They sung to me in languages that never existed. Patterns and faces and colors came and went in my mind's eye. I recalled my whole life and imagined living another. I forgot English. I settled into a profound despair. I spoke to God. I became God. I imagined a new universe and brought it to life with my thoughts. Then I did it all again and again. My eyes opened with a geologic slowness, a faint glow. Weeks, a slit of light. Weeks, a narrow view of the metro platform, ankles of the commuters near me, and an advertisement on the opposite wall. I extracted my phone from my pocket, a project that spanned decades. How can I even explain the boredom? The pain in my shoulder is nothing compared to the boredom. Every thought I can think, I've thought hundreds of times already. The view of ankles and and advertisements never changes, never. The boredom is so intense, it's tangible, like a solid object of metal and stone wedged into my skull, inescapable. What are my options? If I crawl and fall onto the tracks without an oncoming train to crush me, I won't die. I'll experience even more pain from the 40-foot tall. I'll experience even more pain from the 4-foot fall. But I'll most likely be rescued by some do-gooder on the platform and unable to act with the train when the train finally does arrive. My suffering in that scenario will be endless. So I wait for the train, so I can throw myself under it. When it finally hits me, I will experience the pain of being ripped to pieces for centuries, until finally the light of life leaves my brain and experience ends. I've lived hundreds of lifespans at the foot of this bench. I am far older in spirit than any human who has ever lived. Most of my life experience has been a snapshot of pain huddled on the floor of a subway platform with an unchanging view of ankles and advertisements. This post is my plan B, my Hail Mary, my long shot. I've spent lifetimes typing and posting this message in the hope that someone will read it and become convinced that my suffering must end. Someone on this platform right now, someone who will find the man curled up under the bench, the man who crawled down the escalator, and kill him as swiftly as possible. A bullet to the temple. If you're armed and at the Glenmont Metro, please shoot me.
You said it. You said it. You said
Cinema.
the thing. Yeah,
All right.
This is a really this story really stuck with me the first time I read it because it's like a really existential sort of thing, right? Living hundreds of lives and being, through your mind's eye, which I really like that descriptor. Because,
Yeah, I think
for me, it's it's stuck with me because existentialism and horror is something that I really like to think about, and paralysis is a big fear of mine.
Oh yeah, same. This is something that again it stuck with me too because it really does hit some of my deepest fears, stuff like paralysis and just like not being in control of myself, right?
I feel like yeah, I get that. That's fucking it's intense. But I think one of the biggest things that got me was the way he described how long it took to breathe.
That part, yeah, that is one of the parts that stuck with me the most.
Like,
the part that stuck with me the most, though, personally, is the line, I spoke to God, I became God, I imagined a new universe and brought it to life with my thoughts, then did it all again and again.
yeah,
I love that
really
line.
Yeah, that is such an intense thing to feel. Like, I can't imagine the horror.
It's the amazing juxtaposition between the mere milliseconds it takes him to blink and the existence
creation of universes repeated.
The creation and extinction of entire universes repeated multiple times.
That is some fucking intense shit, dude.
I love it. This is
really,
one of my personal favorite stories.
It's a very interesting concept.
And like I said, this story is part of a sort of universe of stories that the author has made. There's also my patient spent thousands of years under the Glenmont Metro or something like that from the perspective of the doctors. And I think there's a follow-up from the same perspective too. So those could be interesting to check out. If you guys are interested, the author is Sarcasmonomicon on r/NoSleep. So very, very good story, incredible writing.
Yeah,
I love it.
Very intense concept, in my opinion.
Very intense and very unique concept.
Yeah, no, I'm really hung up on that breathing thing though.
I loved that.
That's like one of the worst parts of a trip for me is the slowed breathing.
It's like you know when you feel yourself, you can start to feel yourself breathe and you're manually breathing and blinking.
When you suddenly gain that consciousness almost.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word.
It's so I love it.
It's when somebody goes and says you're blinking manually now.
Yeah. And then again the fact that the pacing of the story matches the character's perception of time.
Yeah.
It works so well together. It all fits so well to at the end create this big climactic moment where he's while he's saying some of these things, I can imagine someone in a straitjacket in a rubber room rocking in a corner, muttering these things to himself, right?
Yeah.
It's
shit, I had something to say but I forgot.
It's an absolutely amazing story.
The boredom part.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, because I feel like that really fits in with the accelerated mind aspect.
That, and it's also sort of a through line because one of the first things he mentions is in the
so
waiting
bored.
room. In the waiting room, waiting for his hand to get the book. He's I got kind of bored, and then while he's juggling the balls, he's it was kind of boring waiting for the balls to get to its arc. And
I think
sort of culminates.
Yeah, because he constantly needs stimulation from the accelerated mind aspect, right?
Yeah. It's
the pain aspect of it.
The pain, the pain. He describes it's pretty much his entire existence for years is the pain of a dislocated shoulder.
Yeah, no, because like the thought of pain moving so slowly, at least to you, through your nerve endings is crazy.
Like it's actually some like supervillain show. Like his entire existence, all of his perception of everything right now is pain for centuries, centuries of darkness while he's blinking, and all he feels is the pain of a dislocated shoulder.
I feel like yeah, that would be like one of the scariest things anybody could go through. It's almost like being in a coma, unable to move, but you can still think. Like if you've ever like
Yeah,
everybody knows that theory of comas that they're still conscious
yeah. Well, it's like
during.
what's it called? There's like a pseudo coma. It's like a pseudo coma.
Yeah, yeah. I think the way he talks about how he's built, he's become God, is almost like an immortal curse of immortality type aspect. He's seen universes.
Yeah, it
Uh,
gets as time slows, it gets progressively existential, right? And
yeah,
especially like it really ramps up at the end,
yeah.
where he.
Existentialism and horror is one of my favorite things,
But I love that
honestly.
like it's not that he like literally is becoming God and creating universe. No, it's just that he is so bored. He has such a lack of stimulation, of
That he
anything.
feels the need. That he feels the
Yeah,
need to become a god in his own way.
that is his brain is just creating its own universe multiple times to
Yeah,
keep him from going crazy.
it almost feels like a really bad drug trip. Honestly.
It is. That's exactly what it
Well,
is.
yeah, essentially, yeah. I feel like this guy, like the author of this, probably had like a really bad trip off of like acid or something, and this is exactly what happened.
I mean, the story is literally a bad drug trip.
Yeah, and then the crossfade.
Yeah, the cross taking an Ambien is like the stupidest thing you can do in this scenario,
Yeah, no.
for sure.
Like I like how it shows instead of making him sleepy, it slows down his brain so much that it completely freezes for him, but it doesn't
Yeah,
quite reach that I forget the name of it, the part that makes you fall asleep or whatever.
whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I failed psychology.
But yeah, this is an amazing story. If you guys are interested, the author is sarcasm sar- sarcasmnomicon on Reddit, and he has other stories too, not just related to Glenmont Metro, but also like a bunch of other stuff too. So he is like a prolific author. If you liked this story, definitely go check out his stuff.
Yeah, I would 100% recommend that. Recommend? What am I, stupid?
All right, I'm ending my recording now.
Alright. Bye bye! Stay hypnophobic. I'm cutting that out.